Hello friends, welcome back. In last session, we have learned about variables and the mutability of the variables. In this section, we are going to discuss about the ownership concept in Rust. Ownership is a set of rules that governs how a Rust program manages the memory. Some languages have garbage collection that regularly looks for no longer used memory as the program runs. In other languages, the programmer must explicitly allocate and free the memory. Rust uses a third approach. Memory is managed through a system of ownership, which is a set of rules that the compiler checks. What are the rules? Rules of ownership. Each value must be assigned to a owner. So each value belongs to a owner. That is first rule. Second rule, there can only be one owner at a time. Correct. And the third rule, when the owner goes out of scope, the value will be dropped. So as we discussed earlier also, that Rust do not have any garbage collection. It follows the ownership concept to allocate and deallocate the memory. So how it works? Let's try it out. Function main, let's define one variable. Let s equals to string of hello and print s. We have defined this variables and we have already printed this value and it works. Now in the case of ownership, s is the owner of string hello. We have already discussed that strings are stored in heap. Okay, so let's try one more variable. Let s1 equals to s and try to print it. Print not s1, we want to print s. So in this case, the here what we are doing is we are transferring the value, we are transferring the ownership of hello string to s1, from s to s1, and then let's try to print the s. Because ownership has been transferred, it should give an error. So let's run the program and check and see unused variable s1. So that is warning, leave it. So we are interested in the error. The ownership has been shifted to s1. Now s is deallocated. So there is no such variables after this line. So till this line, ownership belongs to s of the hello string, and as soon as we assign s1 to s, then ownership gets shifted to s1. Correct. Now we can print s1. That will work. Correct. There is one other concept also. So suppose I define two methods, fn make copy and then input int and print ln, and call this from here. Call this. So let's define one more variable. Let input equals to 5 and pass the variable and print input. So it will run or it will give an error. It will run. I will explain why it will run. And another method we will use, rather than int, we will use string. So fn transfer ownership and pass input underscore string as string and call this method also. Call this and pass s1 and try to print s1 again. Print s1. So will it work or will it not work? So this will work. This will work because input is primitive type, so we are not worried about it. And this will not work because S1 has been moved to the function transfer ownership. So why integer value has not been transferred the ownership? In case of S1, in case of a string, the ownership has been transferred. The reason is very simple. The integer are stored on stack and strings are stored on heap. So when you call this string, so after this line, the S1 will get transferred to the function, and this in this case, in case of integer, it will not transfer because it is stored on a stack and it will go by reference. So in this case it will work, in this case it will not work. So let's comment it out first and run the program and let's see if it works. Yes, it is working. So this is also working, this is also working. As soon as I will uncomment this and try to print the same values, it will not work. It will give an error that what it says, this parameter take ownership of the value. Because of it is type of string, it will transfer the ownership from this variable to the function. Understood? And this is the scope. Rule number 3, as soon as it goes out of scope, it will not work. So let's define a block and define a string and say hello Rust, and s3 equals to s2. So we are not interested in this. It will get print. We have already discussed about it, and this is the scope of s2. Now if I print this again, sorry, this is s2. Now if I want to print this s2 again, this will not work because s2 has gone out of the scope. So let's see, let's comment it first and run the program. It is not working. Why it is not working? Because of this print statement. We have already discussed. Comment it and run the program again. Now it works. So it is also working. S2 is also working. If I want to print this out of the block, it should give an error because it is going out of the scope, and rule number 3 says as soon as it will goes out of scope, it will throw an error. Correct? Because it is out of scope. S2 is out of scope. Correct? So this is how ownership works in Rust. You can refer the documentation for more details. If you have any questions, leave me a comment and I will try to answer your question. Thank you guys. See you in next video.